Beneath Antarctica's endless snow, sharp peaks rise, too perfect, too precise to be natural. Are they mountains or pyramids buried in ice? And nearby, strange magnetic anomalies bend compasses, disturb instruments, and whisper of hidden structures below. Could this frozen land be guarding the remnants of an ancient civilization, or something far older? For centuries, Antarctica was dismissed as nothing more than an empty wasteland, a barren sheet of white at the edge of the map, lifeless and hostile where explorers vanished and compasses failed. Yet the deeper we've looked, the more this frozen continent has defied expectation. First come the bleeding waterfall, then the hidden lake, and now the possibility of structures, geometric, deliberate, ancient, waiting in silence beneath the ice. The story begins in the early 20th century when explorers began mapping Antarctica in greater detail. From the air, some noticed peaks rising from the ice in strange, triangular shapes. They looked less like random mountains and more like deliberate design. Angles too precise, symmetry too sharp. At the time, these sightings were chalked up to tricks of light and shadow, the mind playing games in a land of snow and fog. But as satellite imaging advanced in the late 20th century, the anomalies refused to disappear. High-resolution scans revealed formations in Queen Maud Land, Antarctica's eastern frontier, with strikingly pyramid-like features. Some rose more than 4,000 meters above sea level, partially buried in snow, their sides aligned with uncanny regularity. The images circulated in whispers. Could these be natural mountains carved by ice and erosion, or something deliberately built in an age long forgotten? Skeptics argue that these are simply nunataks, mountain peaks that break through the ice sheet, sculpted by millennia of wind and snow. Yet even they admit the geometry is unusual, not chaotic, as one expects from nature, but purposeful. The kind of symmetry that forces us to ask, if these shapes appeared in Egypt, would anyone hesitate to call them pyramids? And the timing of their rediscovery makes the mystery even more curious. In the 1930s and 40s, expeditions from Germany and later other nations set their sights on Queen Maud Land. Officially, they were conducting geological surveys. Unofficially, the rumors say they were searching for something more, evidence of ancient civilizations, hidden knowledge, perhaps even proof of contact with beings from beyond. The pyramids of Antarctica remain one of the most hotly debated mysteries of the continent. Natural wonder or engineered relic, geological coincidence or lost history encased in ice. Each side of the debate brings its evidence, but neither can fully silence the other. And the truth, if it exists, remains locked beneath kilometers of frozen secrecy. But the pyramids are only one half of this puzzle, because not far from these geometric peaks, something else has been detected. Something invisible, yet measurable. A force that distorts compasses, scrambles instruments, and draws the attention of scientists and governments alike. Magnetic anomalies. And in Antarctica, they may be the key to unlocking the greatest secret of all. Deep beneath Antarctica's frozen crust, the Earth itself seems to whisper in signals we can barely understand. These are not the whispers of ice cracking or glaciers moving, but something far stranger. Distortions in the very magnetic field that surrounds our planet. Explorers first noticed it the hard way. Compasses spun uselessly. Instruments flickered with readings that made no sense. Pilots flying over certain regions reported sudden malfunctions, as if invisible hands were tugging at their machines. At first, these were dismissed as equipment errors. After all, Antarctica is an unforgiving place for delicate technology. But when the same distortions appeared again and again, in the same places, the anomalies became impossible to ignore. One of the most infamous lies beneath the Wilkes Land region of East Antarctica. In 2006, NASA satellites studying gravity patterns made a startling discovery. A massive circular anomaly, more than 300 kilometers wide, buried beneath the ice. To put that in perspective, it's larger than the entire state of New Jersey. What caused it? The official explanation points to a massive impact crater, formed by a colossal asteroid strike hundreds of millions of years ago. Such an event could have triggered one of Earth's great extinction events, reshaping the planet's history. And yet, even within that explanation lies mystery. The readings suggest not just an impact, but something dense, metallic, and structured at the anomaly's core. Something that should not be there. Others look at the data and see something else entirely. They argue that the magnetic distortions are too sharp, too precise to be only the scars of ancient rock. Instead, they suggest the presence of an artificial object, buried deep beneath the ice, an enormous structure, entombed long before humans ever set foot on the continent. The Wilkes Land anomaly isn't the only one. Smaller magnetic disturbances have been charted across Queen Maud Land, near the very region where the so-called pyramids rise from the ice. Some researchers whisper that these two mysteries are linked, that the geometric peaks above and the magnetic distortions below are parts of a single puzzle, a buried architecture hidden beneath Antarctica's frozen shell. Governments have taken notice. Scientific expeditions to these regions are carefully monitored, often classified. Data from certain surveys disappears into restricted archives, and when independent researchers press too hard for answers, the trail grows cold. Could this all be coincidence? Natural geological formations combined with the quirks of a shifting magnetic field? Perhaps. But then again, why does Antarctica, a land supposedly devoid of human history, hold anomalies that echo the mysteries of our most ancient civilizations? Pyramids that mirror those in Egypt. Magnetic signals that recall legends of buried cities. Shadows of structures in a place that should be nothing but ice. If the ice is hiding something, then the anomalies may be the map. A map pointing to secrets so vast, they could rewrite not only the history of Antarctica, but the history of humanity itself. And that raises the question, who or what put them there? The deeper we descend into Antarctica's mysteries, the more the line blurs between science and legend. Because these pyramids and magnetic anomalies do not exist in isolation. They are woven into a larger tapestry of whispers, of lost civilizations, forbidden maps, and secrets guarded by governments for decades. One of the most intriguing threads begins with the Piri Reis map, drawn in 1513 by an Ottoman admiral. On its weathered parchment, coastlines of South America and Africa are familiar. But so too is something shocking. The northern edge of Antarctica appears, centuries before the continent was officially discovered, and, even stranger, it is drawn without ice. How could a 16th century cartographer have charted a frozen land in its ice-free state? Supporters of the mystery argue that the admiral must have relied on older source maps, copies of copies, stretching back into a forgotten age when Antarctica was warmer and possibly inhabited. If true, it suggests that someone, long before modern history, had the technology to explore, to map, and perhaps even to build. And this is where the pyramids of Antarctica return to the stage. Could they be remnants of such an age? Structures left behind by a civilization erased from history, buried under the ice as the continent froze over? The symmetry, the alignment, the sheer improbability of their geometry gnaws at the imagination. But the anomalies do not stop with maps and mountains. In the 20th century, several expeditions reported strange occurrences in the regions where the pyramids and magnetic disturbances lie. Instruments malfunctioned. Teams grew disoriented. Stories circulated of researchers experiencing vivid hallucinations or feeling as if they were being watched. Officially, these incidents were explained away as polar stress, the toll of isolation in one of the harshest environments on Earth. But unofficially, some whispered that the land itself was exerting an influence, bending minds as easily as it bent compasses. Then came the satellite era, when machines began to peer beneath the ice with radar and thermal imaging. What they revealed was not just random anomalies, but patterns. Rectangular grids, linear formations, heat signatures where no volcanic activity should exist. At first, scientists cautioned against over-interpretation. Natural rock strata can play tricks, and radar echoes are notoriously difficult to read. Yet still, the images circulated, feeding speculation. Were these just illusions in data? Or were we staring at the buried foundations of something immense? The speculation escalated further when classified documents surfaced hinting that certain governments had conducted their own covert surveys of Antarctica. What exactly they were looking for was never disclosed. But the fact that military satellites and classified research were directed at the same regions where pyramids and magnetic anomalies had been reported, that could not be coincidence. Which brings us back to the question no one can escape. If these anomalies are the scars of an ancient catastrophe, then we are studying geology. But if they are not, if they are deliberate, structured, engineered, then we are staring into the face of a history that does not belong to us. And if that history lies beneath Antarctica's ice, the real question is not whether we can uncover it, but whether we are meant to. It starts with a compass refusing to behave, a needle twitching wildly, spinning as though possessed, unable to point north. At first, explorers thought it was just the sheer cold, the interference of steel or simply human error. But then, the data came in. Antarctica is home to some of the strangest magnetic anomalies on Earth. Places where the magnetic field dips, swells, and twists as though something unnatural lies buried beneath the ice. One of the most famous of these sites not far from Lake Vostok, a vast circular disturbance stretching for miles, where instruments fail and pilots report their gauges spinning out of control. Some scientists explain it as dense rock beneath the ice, perhaps the remnants of an ancient meteorite impact. But others whisper about structures, the kind not built by natural forces, something massive and geometric, hidden deep below. Could it be the remnants of a lost civilization? Or something else entirely? Theories exploded when satellite data revealed a perfectly circular anomaly, too regular to be dismissed as chance. Some called it a buried city. Others suggested it might be evidence of extraterrestrial contact, a beacon or artifact sealed away under millions of tons of frozen silence. Skeptics urge caution. Magnetism is a strange force, and anomalies occur naturally around the world. But why here? Why beneath one of the most forbidden and unreachable places on Earth? What adds to the enigma is how closely tied these anomalies are to areas already rich with secrets, like Lake Vostok and the supposed pyramids. It's as if all the pieces align in one place, whispering the possibility of a truth too vast, too unsettling to confront directly. For now, the magnetic fields keep their secrets. The needles keep spinning. The data keeps puzzling scientists. And deep in the frozen dark, something waits, silent, but not forgotten. But the real question is, if the ice is hiding answers to Earth's greatest mysteries, why has no one been allowed to dig deeper? When the first satellites began to scan Antarctica with precision, they revealed something explorers on the ground had long suspected. There are places on this continent that defy explanation. In certain zones, particularly near the Wilkes Land region, sensors picked up what looked like a massive crater buried under the ice. Some estimates place it at nearly 300 miles across, dwarfing the impact site of the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs. If true, this would mark one of the largest impact craters on Earth. Yet, unlike others, it remains sealed in ice, untouched, almost as if preserved on purpose. But this was not the only revelation. NASA's Operation Icebridge, which mapped the ice sheets using advanced radar, stumbled upon strange patterns. At times, the radar would return echoes that suggested not chaotic natural landscapes, but regular geometric formations. Grid-like shapes, angles that seemed too clean, flat expanses beneath miles of ice that looked less like caves and more like chambers. When combined with the magnetic anomalies, a chilling pattern began to emerge. The idea that Antarctica was simply a frozen wasteland no longer seemed sufficient. Something beneath the surface was shaping the land, bending magnetic fields and confusing instruments. And then, there were the forbidden zones. Even in today's era of satellite imagery, certain patches of Antarctica remain heavily blurred or obscured on public maps. While most continents can be viewed in great detail from above, Antarctica has blacked out areas where imagery is either missing, pixelated, or strangely covered with artificial-looking smudges. Officially, these are explained away as technical errors or data gaps. But skeptics are not convinced. Why would the coldest, most lifeless continent on Earth contain areas we are not allowed to see? Conspiracy theorists suggest that governments, scientists, and elite organizations may already know what lies beneath. The evidence of something that could rewrite human history. Whether that's the ruins of a forgotten civilization, the remains of something not from this Earth, or technologies buried since the ancient past. The secrecy raises more questions than answers. And yet, the deeper we look, the stranger it becomes. Because every anomaly, every blurred satellite image, every forbidden zone seems to point in one direction, toward the possibility that Antarctica's ice is not hiding emptiness, but a legacy. But whose legacy is it, and how far back does it go? Long before satellites and radar, long before compasses spun out of control over Antarctica's ice, the ancients may have already known something we've only just begun to rediscover. One of the most baffling pieces of evidence comes from a map drawn in 1513 by the Ottoman admiral Piri Reis. This map, preserved on gazelle skin, depicts parts of South America, Africa, and something far stranger. At its southern edge, it shows a landmass strikingly similar to the outline of Antarctica. But here's the catch. According to modern science, Antarctica wasn't even discovered until 1820, 3 centuries later. And there's more. The Piri Reis map doesn't just show Antarctica, it shows it without ice. Mountain ranges, rivers, and coastlines are drawn in shocking detail, as if the cartographer had access to a source older than recorded history. Skeptics insist the resemblance is coincidence, or perhaps the coastline of South America misdrawn. But experts who analyzed the Piri Reis map in the 20th century noted that the mountain ranges it depicts align with those discovered beneath Antarctica's ice by seismic surveys hundreds of years later. How could a 16th century map show features buried under thousands of feet of ice? Unless, at some point in the distant past, Antarctica was mapped by a civilization capable of navigating the globe. Long before the rise of Europe, long before the ice swallowed the continent. And here, the magnetic anomalies and geometric structures buried beneath the ice suddenly take on new meaning. What if they are not simply random disturbances, but the buried remnants of a world that came before ours? A civilization lost to cataclysm, erased from memory, but leaving behind clues in maps, myths, and now, satellites. Other maps, like those of Oronteus Phineas in 1531, and later ones from the Renaissance period, also hint at an Antarctic coastline without ice. Scholars debate their accuracy, but the persistence of the idea is undeniable, that at least some knowledge of Antarctica existed long before it was discovered. Could this knowledge have survived through secret traditions? Was it preserved in ancient archives we no longer possess? Or was it passed down by survivors of a forgotten epoch, their memory distorted into legend and myth? The pieces begin to connect. Pyramids rising out of the ice, magnetic anomalies hinting at structures below, maps showing Antarctica before it froze. The question is no longer if something lies beneath Antarctica's ice. The question is how much of human history has been hidden with it. And yet, the deeper we go, the more dangerous the implications become. Because if civilizations once thrived here, who erased them? Was it nature or something else? For centuries, legends have spoken of a great civilization, technologically advanced, culturally rich, and tragically destroyed in a single night of cataclysm. Atlantis. Plato, the Greek philosopher, described it over 2,000 years ago. A vast island beyond the Pillars of Hercules, swallowed by the sea after angering the gods. Most historians dismiss it as allegory, a moral tale, a warning. But what if it wasn't fiction? What if it was memory? Some researchers believe the true location of Atlantis may not lie in the Atlantic Ocean at all, but buried beneath Antarctica's ice. The theory is radical, but it connects threads that science alone struggles to explain. Consider this. Antarctica wasn't always where it is now. Plate tectonics tell us the continent once sat closer to the equator, basking in temperate climates, supporting forests, rivers, and possibly even human settlement. Then came the sudden shift. A crustal displacement, perhaps caused by a polar shift or massive geological upheaval, dragged the continent southward into the deep freeze. Within centuries, lush land was transformed into a frozen tomb. Any civilization thriving there would have been obliterated, buried under ice, erased from history. Could Atlantis have been Antarctica before the catastrophe? Supporters of this idea point back to the Peary race map and others, suggesting they are not mistakes but inherited knowledge, fragments of charts made by survivors of Atlantis, passed down through ancient cultures until Renaissance mapmakers recorded them. The magnetic anomalies we now detect? They could be the skeletal remains of Atlantean architecture, vast cities, now entombed, the pyramids peeking through the snow, monuments marking a lost epoch. And then there's the sudden silence of official reports. Every expedition that claims to glimpse something extraordinary beneath the ice seems to end in retraction, redaction, or refusal. Why? If there is nothing to hide, why bury the truth? Perhaps the answer is as chilling as the continent itself. If a civilization advanced enough to rival our own once existed, and if its ruins remain intact beneath Antarctica, then everything we know about history collapses. The narrative of humanity's rise, from primitive tribes to modern society, would be shattered. We would not be the first. And worse still, if they were destroyed in a single cataclysm, who's to say the same fate doesn't wait for us? The whispers grow louder. Are the secrets of Atlantis locked beneath 4 kilometers of ice? And if so, why are the world's governments so determined to keep us from knowing? Because maybe, just maybe, Antarctica doesn't just hold the ruins of the past. It may hold a warning for the future. Antarctica is unlike any other place on Earth, not because of its size or its climate or even its mysteries, but because of the way the world treats it. Think about it. Antarctica is the only continent where no nation claims full sovereignty. Instead, it is governed by the Antarctic Treaty System, signed in 1959 at the height of the Cold War. At a time when nuclear tensions divided the planet, 12 nations, including the United States, the Soviet Union, and the UK, suddenly agreed to freeze territorial disputes and share the land for peaceful, scientific research. On the surface, it seems noble, a triumph of cooperation. But look deeper, and the treaty raises questions. Why would rival superpowers suddenly unite over a frozen wasteland? What made Antarctica so special that it required immediate protection and secrecy? Since then, the rules have only grown stricter. No permanent residence, no military activity, no commercial mining, access heavily restricted, monitored, and controlled. Even today, private expeditions are rare and often face unexplained hurdles. And then there are the stories, whispers of aircraft mysteriously diverted. Scientists reporting strange radio interference, explorers turned back by unseen authorities, their findings confiscated or silenced. Take the case of Admiral Richard E. Byrd, a decorated American naval officer. In 1946, just after World War II, he led Operation Highjump, the largest Antarctic expedition ever assembled, with over 4,700 men, aircraft, and warships. Officially, it was to establish a research base. Unofficially, many believe it was a military reconnaissance mission, seeking something hidden beneath the ice. Byrd himself fueled the rumors. In a later interview, he warned that the United States must prepare to defend against enemy aircraft that could fly from pole to pole at incredible speeds. Words that sounded absurd in the 1940s, until whispers of advanced technologies, hidden facilities, and unknown aerial phenomena entered the conversation. Could it be that Antarctica's scientific reserve is a cover? That beneath the guise of cooperation, governments are guarding something too explosive for the world to know? Some point to the very magnetic anomalies we've explored, others to pyramidal structures half buried in ice, and still more to underground caverns, warmed by geothermal heat, where life, or something more, might endure. Whatever the truth, one thing is certain. The silence is deafening. For over 60 years, Antarctica has remained the one place on Earth where ordinary people cannot freely explore, where nations lock arms not in conflict, but in secrecy. And in that silence, the mysteries only grow. Because if Antarctica holds nothing but snow and rock, then why does the world's most powerful nations guard it like a vault? By now, the pieces begin to align like shards of a broken mirror. Pyramids rising from the ice, magnetic anomalies twisting instruments, ancient maps hinting at a land once warm and green. governments enforcing silence, hiding what they know. Individually, each is strange. Together, they paint a picture almost too vast to comprehend. Could Antarctica itself be a kind of vault? Not of treasure, but of knowledge, buried intentionally or by cataclysm to be revealed only when humanity is ready. Some theorists suggest the pyramids were not merely monuments, but markers pointing to what lies beneath. A civilization erased by shifting poles, preserved in a frozen tomb. If true, then the magnetic anomalies could be more than geological quirks. They might be signals, the heartbeat of ancient technology still humming below the surface. And here's the unsettling part. The more we dig, the more resistance we face. Expeditions shuttered, data classified, accounts redacted. Every mystery we uncover seems to trigger a wall of silence from those in power. But why? Perhaps because the answers hidden beneath Antarctica could rewrite history, destabilize religion, or reveal technologies far beyond our own. Knowledge that could unite humanity or destroy it. The pyramids and anomalies are not just puzzles, they are warnings. Silent sentinels that suggest something enormous sleeps below, sealed away by ice and time. And as episode 2 draws to a close, we're left with a chilling thought. Maybe the reason Antarctica is the most restricted continent on Earth is because it is also the most dangerous. But dangerous to whom? To us or to those who fear what we might discover? The trail leads next to one of the strangest, most controversial operations in modern history. Operation Highjump. A mission cloaked in official language, yet whispered to have uncovered something extraordinary. What exactly did Admiral Byrd and his fleet encounter on the ice in 1946? And why did he speak of enemies that could fly pole to pole in an instant? The answers may take us deeper than we've ever gone before, into the shadows of war, secrecy, and legends that refuse to die.